Hey, what's up, everybody? I am here today to talk to you guys about addiction, attachment, and how to navigate it with this coming energies coming through. Of course, I'm going to tie it into the astrology because that's how I make sense of pretty much everything. And so let's begin, shall we? So this is all coming from my subjective perspective, okay? Um, and take what resonates, leave the rest, and whatever you get from it, I hope you get something that helps you navigate these energies coming up, because we are coming into some very powerful energies, and it's going to be important to really be honest and look at where we're at and what we're able to um, you know observe and not absorb while we move through these very powerful energies. So in my subjective interpretation from my experiences, right? Um, what is addiction? Addiction is anything that pulls you out of balance in life. Now, when I say balance, I mean flow, right? When you're in flow state, you're living in your heart space, you're manifesting things that you want, you're not self-sabotaging, you're not being a victim, and things are going right. Now, how many people out there have that as the norm? Or how many people were taught to be able to, be like that, as the norm in this life? There's not a whole lot of people out there that were really taught from their parents or caregivers on how to actually live a healthy, normal life, which is why we live in a society that has made addiction the norm. And to me, attachment is basically a lesser version of addiction. When we have attachments, we have control dynamics that are trying to, keep things, held onto that are not necessarily for highest and best good. And there's a lesson in that to learn. And if we're not willing to feel our heart, if we're not willing to feel our feelings, then there can be a lot of problems. Now you see a lot of these, personal development people and motivational speakers and whatnot that are out there and saying, like, just, push your emotions aside, and you just gotta bury it down, and do the hard work. And I agree, hard work, like working with your emotions and yourself to find your center is and can be hard work, because typically a lot of people, myself included, figure out how to align themselves through the process of suffering, because many of us, I'd say 90 to 95% of us, are born into struggle, born into some kind of trauma, born into some kind of passed down imbalanced process that has been learned behavior from generation to generation to generation. But we are living in a time, in a generation, where we are breaking generational curses, and we are creating new ways of living in life for ourselves. So it's really important not to get caught up in what the general consensus, the mainstream, really says and thinks about, about who we are, really, because addiction is not really knowing who we are, right? We're not living in our heart space. Um, Gaitan asked, "Do you think addiction comes from deficiency or lack of something?" Well, essentially, yes, but but that's a little bit of like an oversimplification. So let's take a look at it. You know, Addiction does not have to necessarily mean that you're taking substances, right? We can be addicted to negative thinking. We can be addicted to work. We can be addicted to distractions. We can be addicted to porn. We can be addicted to sex. We can be addicted to virtually anything, right? A lot of people are workaholics out there. A lot of people become successful through being a workaholic, right? But eventually it catches up to you. Eventually, you feel empty inside. And I cannot tell you how many millionaires and very wealthy people and very prominent people, right? Like even celebrities out there that are depressed, that are, feel like they're lacking something, because there's so much propaganda and so much information out there that pulls us away from our heart, which is why there's this renaissance going on of working with these plant medicines, or working, or connecting with Jesus, or being religious, or being spiritual. There's a big new age spiritual movement happening out there. And as you're growing through these experiences, processes, you're going to go through what most people understand and know as a dark night of the soul. What is the dark night of the soul? Dark night of the soul is when you feel completely disconnected from yourself, from spirit, from God, right? And why do you feel disconnected from it? Because now you're facing your shadow, you're facing your fears, you're facing your traumas, and essentially your shadow is your fears. It is your trauma. And when we're looking at it, we're basically coming from a prism of being incomplete, right? Thank you, Timras13. I appreciate you. Um, we feel incomplete inside because there's something about when we were younger and completely vulnerable, and the people that were taking care of us, they had their own traumas, and through their own traumas, they passed that down through their frequency and energy and vibration down to us. And it's up to now, it's very easy, all right, to be caught up and to see everything that's going on in the world and be like, well, this is going wrong, this is not good, so this is, I'm going to blame everything out here. A lot of projection, there's a lot of projection out there. So if you're finding that you're in your life and in yourself that every situation you get into eventually falls apart, and I went through a very lengthy process of having those experiences myself, because clearly, I had to learn a lot of things from going through them experientially, the hard way, right? So, we really have to get totally honest with ourselves and decide to become responsible, to take responsibility for everything that's going on in our life. And once we take responsibility, then we're able to take a step back, observe and not absorb, and really look at, okay, this is what's going on. This has not been working. Okay. So what do I have to do, be, say, feel, experience in order to make it work? And this is the path of healing. And there's a lot of healing out there right now, especially with this upcoming energy, with Pluto squaring the nodes for the next 6 months. Okay. It's going to push us into a place where we all have to look at our fears coming into this new age. And there is so much propaganda, so much distracting information out there that, if you're not tuning into your own heart and making decisions based on your true heart and what you truly feel, then karma's going to come around, and either it's going to go internal, which means that you're going to create dis-ease in your body eventually. All right, that's why we see a lot of older people in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, and these days even earlier, like in their 40s, that are developing cancer and autoimmune disease and heart issues and all this different stuff, right? Why age happens. Guys, I'm 44 years old, and I feel like I keep my body pretty clean now, but I beat the shit out of it for a long time, right? But it's because I learned through the experience, and I had to learn some pretty tough lessons. So hopefully this information will help you guys to not have to learn those difficult lessons in difficult ways. But what I see, a lot of traps, right? A lot of traps in this process, especially like I work with a lot of addicts, like in AA and, in different programs and processes that the Western, society has shown us how to do. Now that stuff can work to a certain extent and it can help. But ultimately what I see is that it brings you to a certain point, and then you get stuck, and then you get, and you get into this controlling place. And then now you don't want to explore outside of that because you're afraid to go back to where you were at before. But the thing is, you have to open your mind. You have to explore, once you find your balance, you got to keep going. A lot of people, when they find their balance, say for example, like, someone was hooked on heroin, or they're an alcoholic, right? They stop drinking alcohol or they stop shooting heroin, but now, they, like, every time they go to a meeting, right? Like every time they have a break, they're going out and, chain smoking cigarettes or smoking vapes, or, or now they're like, they're masturbating to porn all the time, or they're eating junk food, right? We have to be our own doctors, right? I think Hippocrates actually said, like, let food be thy medicine, and if you are not your own doctor, you are a fool, right? Now, I'm not saying any of y'all are fools out there. All right, there's so much information out there, and depending on what you do for a living, depending on what your passion is, it's easy to get caught up in all these, things. But everybody is good at something, and everybody has a purpose, for the greater good of the collective. And the key is that society, the world out there teaches us to be narcissistic. We live in a very narcissistic society, and narcissism breeds addiction and attachment. Attachments are very, very common. Say if you just had a breakup, in a breakup, there's always one person that still wants the other person, and the other person is like, I'm done, and no thanks, and I'm good. But once that happens, are you going within and are you doing your inner work, or are you just going out and trying to find, another one to slay, or or even, and I've done this before too. I see a lot of people in the fitness industry, they break up and they get in crazy shape. They want to go do a show, right? Well, that's great and everything, but are you really happy? Or are you still competing and doing it because, oh yeah, I'm gonna get in great shape and get them jealous, or, what is your intention behind everything? That's what you have to ask yourself. Because when you go into it, then the show's done, or then whatever competitive nature that you're moving towards, is that bringing you peace and harmony in your heart. And we are moving into a time where anything that is based on anger, insecurity, fear, and these are all different aspects of fear, right? Jealousy, envy, you're watching these videos about how to improve, and you're looking at these people like, I can do that. I'm more of a man or woman, than they are. Then why aren't you there? Right? Are you judging? You can be addicted to judgment, right? What do they have that I don't? I'm good enough. Well, if you're good enough, then where's the action? What action steps you taken to shift your life? Because now that we're coming into this time where our hearts are open, whether we like it or not, the dominant vibration that is taking over right now, particularly this year, is the heart-centered, Christ consciousness, energetic center, where our true authentic self is being exposed. And so we're going to start to see a lot of businesses failing because they're not based on a heart-centered, experience and process. So while those people are going to be coming to the more spiritual businesses that are all about healing and helping people, or just the intention of the collective of that particular business or corporation or people that are, doing what they're doing, if they're the help people and heal people and honor the benefit of the earth, of where we live, of a higher state of being, or just an overall better life experience, right? Quality of life. If it's not based on that, then you're going to see the shit crumble, and it's going to crumble very quickly. Okay. Everyone right now needs to be doing the shadow work. You need to be doing what you're looking at. So look at, I work a lot, but my work is also my passion. It's also what I love to do. And we all got to make money, right? And we all got to be able to, grow and evolve. And, and if, as long as you find some satisfaction, some heart-centered satisfaction that creates win-win scenarios, that's very important, okay? Win-win scenarios come from a place of love, of self-love. And when you want to give back to the world, give back to the community, give back to other people to help them grow and create a betterment in their lives, and that feeling that you get from creating a betterment in their lives makes you feel better, that is the foundational energy that is taking over, okay? And we're all being faced with this feeling, this experience, this process of stepping into that vulnerability. Now, people are addicted to avoiding vulnerability, right? Vulnerability, especially men. All right. Now I see so many men's groups and men getting together, like Sacred Sons are my homies. Shout out to you guys. I love the work that you're doing. Things like what Aubrey Marcus is doing, all these communities that are based on healing and love and growth and facing yourself, right? The shadow is nothing more than the unknown parts of you that have been hurt or taken advantage of when you were vulnerable and you didn't have a way to express yourself at that time, right? Um, so stepping into that vulnerability, and when you do that and you express your vulnerability, there's going to be some people that don't like that, especially the ones that were gaining some kind of benefit, the energetic vampires that were sucking the life out of you, and you were allowing that boundary has to be set in place. So wherever there's an addiction or attachment, there is somewhere in your consciousness where you have unhealthy boundaries that need to be resolved. Now, healthy boundaries allow us to step out in there and to know when to say yes, when to say no, what to be drawn to, what to be attracted to. All right. I know for me, a big one for me is I used to be attracted to very unhealthy women. um, and that's why, I've taken a step back and I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna play that game anymore because that got me in a lot of trouble. And that comes down to self-worth and self-confidence, right? So really being able to take a step back and observe and not absorb, again, I'll say that because that's very important to understand. When you're able to step back, now this is where you learn to have control of your emotions. But if you are distracting yourself onto something that is avoiding that emotion that is trying to come up, and it is impeding the quality of your highest vibrational life, then that is an addiction. So I'd like you to please comment below and let me know what you think about that statement. Okay. Um, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff out there, and anything can be well, not anything, but most things can be either a poison or a medicine. Okay. A lot of foods out there are just riddled with chemicals, pesticides, fillers, artificial colors, flavors, um, things that are destroying our gut microbiome, things that are just destroying our mind, are interfering with our natural thought process. And these things we have to be very careful because let's face it, I mean, we're being poisoned from every direction. So healing and the self-care work has to be a fundamental part of your daily routine. Now, physical fitness, we have an obesity crisis in this world, okay? Children that are being diagnosed with autism and ADHD, all right? All the things that they're being exposed to now. Kids these days, like kids as young as 6, 7, 8 years old have their own phones, they're on TikTok, they're on social media, and that black box, it's feeding them all this dysfunction, right? We're all going to go into fear sometimes, but the important thing is, are you able to recognize when you're going into the fear, and are you able to sit with it and look at it with self-love? Like, look, what are you trying to teach me? And dude, I get it, this stuff can be very uncomfortable. Okay, this is why you need to surround yourself with people, first of all, that'll hold you accountable. All right. A true, real friend will call you out in your shit and not let you be, not enable your bad habits. If people can see that you're getting in your own way, there's a lot of self-sabotage, a lot of victim mentalities. We're in a victim pandemic as well. Okay. A lot, because that's what these people, that's how we imprison ourselves. Right. And we have an opportunity in this age right now to break free from these addictions and attachments. But it takes the vulnerability, it takes the difficult work to either communicate what you're feeling that you're afraid to feel and communicate, open up that throat chakra, right? It takes the ability to say no when you feel like something's not right for you. It takes trusting your heart. When your heart says something and you do something that goes against what your heart is feeling, eventually that shit's going to backfire on you, number one. And number two, you're giving your power away to that thing, that person, that substance, that experience. Okay. Different plant medicines can be, an escape if not done, in the right set and setting and with the right people. You have to really know. And I'll also say this, okay, that a lot of people that go through that, because I've gone through, a few layers of that myself, and that means that you still have things to learn and to experience and work through. But I will say that if you are working with different like plant medicines and things like that, then the karmic justice is going to come much faster. It's going to kick your ass. All right. So also, are you addicted to saving people? I had a savior complex for a long time. All right. And all these things always dial back to mommy and daddy issues, whether you were adopted, whether your parents weren't there for you, whether your dad was a dick, whether you didn't have a dad in the house, whether your mom was controlling, whether it was sexual abuse, whether it was an alcoholic in the family, whether you grew up in the hood and you were taught how to sell drugs, or like whatever the case is. All right, everybody has their own story. And when we look at somebody's chart, somebody's natal chart, we can see the different correlations of all the planets of where in your life your lessons are taking place. And when we see that, we can identify it. And that's when we get the observation, right? So when we have the observation of it, then that's like half the process, right? Now we see it. And then when we see it, we have to accept it, right? Like, oh shit, I did that. And, I did all these things in my life to bring them into my experience to teach me. So you got to stop blaming other people for your own shit. That's very, very important. Okay. That is taking extreme accountability and responsibility for your life. Now, what are you going to do about it? Well, what I did to help pull myself out of these processes is that you have to shift your behavior patterns. Okay. So, you start doing, something that is good for you that maybe doesn't feel good at the time. And let me also point this out too. The difference between a drug and a medicine. All right. Now, there's all layers to this shit, okay? Like, so this isn't all black and white. These are all very gray area. But the difference between a drug and a medicine, a drug makes you feel good at first. It makes you feel like shit later. A medicine is something that makes you feel like shit first, but makes you feel better later. So when you go into your own life, what are you, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So when you go into your own life, look at the different things, the different, even supplements, like your food. All right. Like, are you just like, food's super expensive right now, right? Are you taking actions or action steps to be able to mitigate that? Are you growing your own stuff? Are you buying, I don't even know if organic makes any difference at this point, but the closer to, like being grown in the ground, or, being fresh, right? The better. Or are you eating all processed stuff? Or are you just like lazy, just ordering out on, on Grubhub or something like that, like a couple times a day? Like, it takes work, guys. And this work can, at this point, everyone has to implement this into their lives, because the more different ways that you're putting this stuff, into or on your body, all right, the more that it's going to weigh you down, and the more difficult it's going to be to break out of that. Between heavy metals, all right, these foods and these pesticides, they're destroying our guts, which is the good bacteria. And the bacteria are thought forms that travel through the vagus nerve into our brain and give us the thought forms. And we essentially, everyone has two fundamental voices in their head, but we all have many more than that. But they're all, we can put it in two categories, I would say. All right. The higher self, God version of ourself, which is all the positive things. I know I can do this. I know I can do that. It's our conscious. Come on, you can do better. Blah, blah, blah. Like all these things that are motivating and that we know we can, create a better life. And then the one that's, I'm too tired and I didn't get good sleep last night. And, oh, they're just in a mood, and I'm just going to let that be okay, even though it makes me feel like shit. Or, like, it's just this one more time. Or, like, all these excuses. It's so easy to make an excuse because we don't have the energy. We have to create the energy, right? I was listening to something the other day that was saying by 2035, we're going to have a microbiome epidemic, which means that because, like all the fake shit that's coming out and all the artificial stuff, it's killing our bacteria so much that we're not going to have bacteria in our gut anymore. I mean, how's that even possible, right? The fuck yeah or fuck no voice. Absolutely. Now, those are two categories. When we break it down even further, every human being has, according to Caroline Myss, I love her work. If you guys haven't read her books, they're amazing. And she breaks down in archetypes. So every single human being has 4 fundamental survival archetypes. And I actually made videos on these a couple years ago. They're on my YouTube channel. You can go check it out. There's, let's see, there's a victim, the saboteur, the wounded child, and the prostitute. Now, the prostitute may not be what you think. The prostitute is when we give our power away, right? We say, oh, well, prostitutes give their body away in return for financial gain, right? But how else do we prostitute our energy? How else do we prostitute our power, right? We give our power away when we allow someone else's idea, choice, we allow another substance we know it's not good for us to take over. Now some people don't have a problem with this, and that's cool. And if you're doing it, to have fun and everything is, cool, and your mind is in a good solid place, just want to go out and have fun, then good for you. That's amazing. And that's not an addiction. What's an addiction is when you're doing it, but you have a battle inside. It's all about your intention behind it, right? So if your intention is, like you're beating yourself up, you have that self-saboteur in there, and it's saying, I just don't want to feel this, that's where, drinking or drugs or porn or food or, competition or anything can become very unhealthy. And because of all the marketing and advertising, all this and all the psychological warfare that's going on in there are so many people, especially these younger generations, all these people are getting famous on TikTok, and all this social media dynamics, right, are all feeding that unhealthy behavior and addiction. And we're already seeing it. Like, mental illness is like promoted to look normal. There is nothing normal about that. Now, with Pluto going into Aquarius, it's not going to be fully in Aquarius till next year. So we're getting a taste of it this year. April, May, June is going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. And this is going to be a snapshot for what's coming up, that's going to be solidifying, next year. So this is going to really throw in our face, like, where are your fears, where you're running away, where you're distracting yourself. And what are you going to do about it? The universe is, at this point, is kind of like saying, what are you going to do about it? You may start to have physiological issues, right? Aquarius rules the central nervous system. It also represents technology, right? Decentralization. So the brain and the central nervous system are being upgraded, but that also means that anxiety, depression, like feeling like your nerves are frayed, right? And many people are living in a sympathetic dominant state. That's why really what these plant medicines do is they balance out the central nervous system, and they alleviate the imbalance of the central nervous system. But then when we go out into the world, it's our responsibility to keep it that way. Now, if you're, we live in a world that's overly stimulated, not just with stimulants per se, but with stimulation visually, stimulation experientially, right? All this anger and rage and insecurity and fear, people seeking safety over growth. Safety over growth will no longer work. The key is that you feel, the key is to learn to feel safe within your growth. Okay. Learning how to sort of be okay with not being okay, or learning, it's the vulnerability that's going to make us feel safe. And that vulnerability is going to come, with the growth and with the shifting of our central nervous system, into this new place. Now, substances are only, one small piece of the pie when it comes to this. So, like, say you like, from my experience, right, being in the fitness industry, competing in bodybuilding, I mean, look, steroids, right? HRT and steroids are the same fucking thing. And so I was talking to actually one of my clients is a federal judge, and I was telling her this, and she was like, "Really? I had no idea." Like, people that live in the matrixy world, that make a lot of money, that like are embedded with all these doctors and Western medicine and all these things, they have no idea. It's just wordplay, right? So HRT, of course, the intention behind HRT is to bring your hormones back to normal. When people think of steroids, they think of super physiological amounts, meaning stuff that brings you way over the top. Well, I can tell you right now, if you're even working with that stuff and you're taking, an amount that is bringing it to super physiological amounts, your body is going to start to break down. It's going to mess you up. Okay, you got to be careful. Our truths are all being confronted right now, and people are going to do one of two things. They're either going to double down, and we're seeing this out in the world, right? They're going to double down on the narcissism. They're going to double down on blaming other people. They're going to double down on all this victim. It's your fault. It's your fault. It's no, like, I gotta go harder. I gotta, fuck you. I'm gonna, prove you wrong. All this. That is going to be incredible. We're going to see it's going to be incredibly destructive. The other way is that, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Or maybe this keeps coming back at me, right? So there's something I need to learn here. So I'm going to open up to someone that I trust or I want to trust, and hopefully they'll take my vulnerability as a sign that I want to grow and allow me to be vulnerable and express, and then I will receive what they have to say with an open heart. The key is we have to be willing to receive. And it's interesting that, Venus is going to be conjunct the North Node here in the next couple of days, right before the new moon at 0 degrees Aries, which is going to be a complete reset. And then 2 days later, Pluto comes into Aquarius. So we're right on the edge. Now, this edgy feeling that we're all feeling right now, right? It's more of like the universe is like trying to hold everyone, not trying to. The universe is saying you need to hold yourself accountable. It's time to look at your shit, and you're going to feel heavier and heavier if you refuse to look at it. Okay. Now, once Pluto goes into Aquarius and Saturn is already in Pisces, so Saturn is already backing off because Saturn was in signs that it ruled for the last 5 years. Okay, so Saturn was giving us stern. You got to grow, you got to learn, you got to move. So look at where you've been in the last 5 years, and see how maybe it was really difficult. Maybe there was a lot of change. Maybe you really grew. Maybe you had a lot of death, a lot of change, a lot of difficulty that happened. That difficulty was there to teach you to look at yourself. Okay. So at this point, I've noticed some people, it's like, this is too much. I can't handle it. I'm done. Please leave me alone, universe. Like, I don't want any more. All right. That's not the answer. The answer is, you know what? I'm going to change my ways. I'm going to do things that are good for me. I'm going to embrace being open and be vulnerable and learn so I can take responsibility and I can step into what I'm truly meant to do in this life. And whatever you're meant to do is not going to make logical sense, especially if you're in a place right now where you're not doing what you're meant to do. Say, you're a woman that's in an unhappy relationship, right? And you're reliant on your partner financially. Or you're in a business that you really don't enjoy, but you figured out the system and you know that you're good at the system, but it's a very manipulative system. All these systems are going to start to crash, guys. Okay, so the people that are going to make it are the ones that are living in their heart and doing what they're meant to do, right? So follow your heart and do what you feel that you're divinely guided to and called to do. Now, at first, look, I've been doing that, since I got out of the military in 2011. And it was a rough road for a long time because, I had to learn, and all these things I was learning, 10 years ago, nobody knew about all this shit that's going on now about, energy medicines and plant medicines and microscopy and, massage was looked at like little puny, massage people. Body work and understanding fascia. They don't even teach fascia in freaking colleges. It's not considered a system in colleges, where it's actually probably the single most influential and important system to understand in the body, to understand human consciousness. Okay, now Dr. Bruce Lipton, and those guys, yeah, that's right, Callie. Peptides are the shit. But these things are all shifting and turning. It's why, in my opinion, I never really did great in school. Okay, I did good in the military because I was very competitive, right? That's why I stand out. Hell yeah. But I have a competitive nature naturally, but I had to learn what was healthy competition and unhealthy competition, because there most definitely is a difference, right? So I was unhealthy in my competition when I first started bodybuilding. I was seeking external validation, and I got a lot of it at first, but that ended up leading to my demise. And my last big show, when I got up to about 250 pounds and I competed as a heavyweight in 2013, it crumbled, right? Like I placed like 38th. I was supposed to be in a reality TV show. It never happened. And I lost all this money. And then like I did a photo shoot with this guy. I didn't know he was like the gay porn captain of Southern California. And I got put on like, gay porn websites. Granted, I wasn't naked or anything, but the captions and stuff people did, I got like pictures from some of my friends like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Right. So you have to be really careful, because at that time I was a very lack mentality. I was like, I need the money. This guy was paying me some good money just to do a photo shoot after I got off stage. I was still in shorts and I was doing a fitness photo shoot, but all his connects were all, gay dudes. And now I got nothing against gay people. Like I have a lot of friends that are gay, but I'm not. So I don't want to be associated with that shit. And I don't want to, I don't want to be bringing that kind of energy into my life. So, I had to really learn some weird lessons, right? From doing the things that were out of fear. Now, seeking external validation is a momentum that is shaped through fear. And ultimately, it came from me feeling, my abandonment wounds and rejection wounds from my father not being there, from my feeling abandoned, from my mom and all this stuff. Now, me and my mom are best friends now. We're like this. We've made amends. I went home in 2021, and I saw my dad, and we made amends, and we hugged it out, we cried, we really bonded and connected. And that's what needs to happen now, guys. We have to reconcile it. Like there's so many broken families out there. They did this by design for the last hundreds, if not thousands of years, to break apart the nuclear family, the tribal aspect that we're all naturally inclined to be a part of. And they separated us so that we all feel lost. But now we're coming back together and creating families like galactic families, soul families. And through that, that's enabling us to bring back our nuclear families, our children, right? The people that, our bloodline, bring them back together so we can connect and we can make shit happen. Because when we connect from a heart space, right? And we exchange value, we don't base our value on outside, circumstance or outside people's version of value. We create our own value through what feels right to us in our heart and get out of our head. And that means that we wake up and we're doing something we love in exchange for something else that we need. Right now, we may not have all the stuff that we've been conditioned to think that we want, but we will have everything that we need. And when that's the norm, then once we have everything we need, then we can start to look for the new stuff that we want that is in our heart space. And you might be surprised that some of the things that you want when you have everything that you need from a place of love are not the same things that you want when you feel lost, right? So please call your mom, call your dad, call your family, call the people that you love that you haven't talked to in a while, okay? Because we all need to reconnect and stay connected, understand this concept. And so many people are struggling with mental health issues, with addictions, with isolation. Okay, now I also want to say this: anxiety and depression are types of addiction. Yes, starfish, you should. Why do I say that? Well, depression is addiction to negative self-talk. Sometimes it feels like you have no control. It just takes over because you've given your power away to that voice in your head. Anxiety is being addicted to worrying about the future. And worrying is a prayer for what you don't want. Now, I've been guilty of this a lot in the past, and that stems from what we were, conditioned to when we were children. It's embedded in our central nervous system, which connects to our fascia, right? And our fascia, our posture, our physical body, whatever restrictions we have there, that's telling our brain, because our body is our subconscious mind. So understanding your body, that's why being in shape is so important, or actually at least being connected to your physical body. Now, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. You don't have to be a triathlete. You don't have to be a professional swimmer. You just have to move. Movement is life, right? So when you got there and you move and you stretch and you open up and you feel the imbalances in your body and you try to connect to it and open it up, right? Let this, because what happens is when we get restrictions, it restricts blood flow. When blood flow does not get to an area, then that's essentially dead tissue, because blood brings the nutrients to the area. So we see so many people that are obese because they're restricted, because they're not looking at themselves and they're not doing the inner work to feel within their body. And that's where depression comes in, because they're not connected to themselves, right? So, and then what happens is that you have surgeries, right, to correct imbalances. Then you get on medications, and then it's a downward spiral rabbit hole. So the more medications you're on, the more surgeries that you had, the more all these things, scar tissue, medications are all very acidic. They'll change the pH of your body. They shift the bacteria so that you're getting different thought forms to your brain. You're literally getting artificial thought forms sent to your brain, which I kind of really chop up to being like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, right? Because parasites and fungus and molding, everybody has candida these days, right? Everybody has digestive issues, right? I mean, shit, autism in and of itself is an imbalance, a severely imbalanced microbiome. But the good thing is that it's all reversible, right? Do some combo. Well, someone with autism will probably need combo quite a few times, right? You get the diet right, and boom. I've seen autistic children just through diet alone go from nonverbal to verbal, right? It's possible. Now look into, ozone therapy, a HOCAT system, or vibroacoustics, or NAD, or any number of these different functional methods of bringing the body and the mind back into alignment. All right. These things will help you to see your attachments, to see your addictions. And even your natal chart and astrology will help you understand where you're getting in your own way, where your self-sabotager is affecting what part of your life, and what you're meant to be learning through the environment that you created in your life. But you have to be willing to look, and you have to be willing to be humbled, and you have to be willing to accept your truth. Okay? Now, this stuff is going to be getting very strong, guys. I'm going to start actually be doing a lot more teachings about this, because I've already have a lot of people coming to me, and I've created a team that's, we're getting out there and we're creating more educational material on how to understand this and how to do work with other people in a community to be able to move through this, to feel it, to face it. And we're already seeing a lot of communities, a lot of influence, a lot of people out there that are doing this work. Okay. But it needs to happen on a bigger scale, right? They want a sick society, but it's people like me and others like me that are getting out there to ensure that that is not going to happen. In order to do that, we all have to be willing to come together. Now, the good thing is we have technology to use in a positive thing. One of the biggest addictions nowadays, scrolling on your fucking social media, right? You just get lost in it. Suddenly an hour goes by. What the hell, right? We need to step back from being consumers and step into being producers. But in order to do that, you have to be able to observe, not absorb, come back and create a structure one step at a time. The thing is, you're not going to see how it all plays out. We are coming into a place where we are creating our next timeline. Up until 2012, the timelines were written. Timelines are no longer written, and we have the conscious ability to co-create our own timelines for our future. And we have a divine calling, a divine destiny in all of us, and that we can also see in the natal chart as well. So if you'd like to get a reading from me, DM me, let me know, email me, thebiowzrd@gmail.com. All right, and I'll help you get clarity on how to understand how to navigate this stuff. It's very, very, very important. That I feel very strongly, if you can't tell, I'm very passionate about this. Okay, because we are not meant to do this alone. We are meant to do this with each other. Build each other up. All right. Real, true leaders create other leaders. All right. Yes, we can have all the knowledge and the wisdom we want, but if we don't put it into action, if we don't put it into practical application in our lives, then it means nothing. Okay? So be honest with yourself about whatever it is, thoughts, experiences, things, substances, whatever that is pulling you out of alignment. And you know deep down, you can feel like you're telling yourself in your head, right? Like, I know I shouldn't be doing this, or I know I should be eating this, but maybe tomorrow, or I'm gonna watch this show on Netflix for the next 3 hours, and I'll start tomorrow, right? I'll start everything tomorrow. But what happens? Tomorrow never comes. You have to start now. Don't start tomorrow morning. Start right now. Make a decision to start doing one thing, just one thing. Habits take time to change and shift. The way I do it, just like this 30-day reset that I'm doing. And on Instagram, I am going on there every morning, 6 a.m. I'm going for a run. And I told myself, like week 1 out of this 30 days, all right, I get up at 6 in the morning, I do a 30-minute run every morning. It's not that big a deal. In fact, I used to do it when I was younger, like nothing. But, first few days, it was rough. I was super sore. I did, when I get up, like, just kind of want to keep it slow. But no, getting up and when I honored that decision in myself and I followed through with it, it gave me confidence. It made me feel good. It made me feel energized, right? So now, starting this next Monday, I'm going to add another thing, which is I'm going to start taking a class here at Protege Gym in Mesa at 5:30 p.m. I think Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, with my business partner that owns the gym that I'm collaborating with, to mingle with all the clientele that come here and have him whoop my ass for an hour, hitting the heavy bag and getting back into like boxing style of hit training, right? I don't enjoy hit training, but I know it's good for me. I know my cardiovascular system needs it, and our cardiovascular system needs work right now. Okay, with all the stuff that they're throwing at us, we need to have good active lungs. We need to have good, strong, blood pumping through our body. And I'm taking it one day at a time. And of course, I'm eating good quality foods the best I can. Like I'm an intuitarian, so I intuit. I already know what is good for me and what's not. Maybe you don't, and so talk or work with someone that can help you with that. But gotta also watch what we're putting in our mind, right? What information we're consuming. And I'm making it a point to, like, I don't scroll anymore. I'll go on my social media to check my messages every day because people have been reaching out to me, right? For business and for work and to help and support people. But I'm shifting my time from doing anything like that to setting up business meetings and connecting with the people around me, to create tasks, to build my vision, to build my business, right? Now, in order to really be successful with this, you have to have a powerful why. So what is the one thing that you really want? For me, I want to create a stable and safe foundation for my daughter. And I want to have a good, healthy relationship with my daughter, because I didn't have a healthy relationship with my father growing up. So I want to be able to share my life with my daughter every day in a safe foundation, in a loving environment. And that drive for me is all powerful. That is pure, true, the deepest levels of love that you can possibly imagine. And love is the thing that just love is the answer. And that sounds so cliche, but it's so true, right? So in order to follow that, in order to feel it, you have to be willing to fall down, get bumps and bruises, to feel your pain, to step through your fear. Because fear, even though it's false evidence appearing real, the shit feels real because it's embedded in our body. It's embedded in our central nervous system. So you will change. Your body will change. Your mind will change. The people around you will change. Everything will shift as you move through your fear. Right? But step into it one step at a time and don't try to figure it all out. Listen to what you feel. Listen to what feels right in the moment. Step into that, knowing that that one step was right for you, and make sure you go slow and don't, rush into it. Okay. When you go slow into it and you feel into it, then that one step, 100% was right for you. And then from that place, you take the next step. And if you continue to repeat that process over and over and over again, you will hit checkpoints. You will get to a place where you start to realize that when you have faith in the process through your heart, that the universe will reward you with what you truly want. And what you truly want may surprise you quite a bit sometimes. All right. So thank you very much, you guys, for tuning in. If this message resonates with you, please share, please like, please subscribe. And I will see you guys on the next video. All right. Aho.